Training course of obligatory pricing of pharmaceutical drugs. Part 1, prepared by Dr. Heba Fathi Yonis, Pricing Manager at SID Pharmaceutical Company. Regulatory framework for drug pricing. Regulatory bodies. Key organizations include the Egyptian Drug Authority, EDA. Consider regulatory requirements and pricing regulations imposed by EDA and complies with any applicable laws and regulations in Egypt. Ministry Decree 499/2012. These regulations cover various aspects from registration to pricing and reimbursement of pharmaceutical product control mechanisms. The pricing department in a pharmaceutical company has a close relationship with several other departments within the organization. Supply chain and operation, finance and accounting, sales and marketing, regulatory affairs. Sales and marketing. The pricing department works closely with sales and marketing teams to develop pricing strategies for the company's products. They collaborate to set the right pricing structures that fulfill costs, quality and customer compliance product pricing in line with market demands and competition. So price of product should not be above or below the market, it should copy the market. The 7Ps strategy in marketing the product involves aspects of evaluating the price. Supply chain and operations. The pricing department may work closely with the supply chain and operations teams to understand the impact of pricing decisions on the company's overall supply chain. They collaborate to estimate the costs associated with manufacturing, e.g., raw materials, packaging, invoice, and any other expenses that impact the final price of the product and determine a pricing structure that covers costs while remaining competitive in the market. Regulatory affairs. The pricing department collaborates with regulatory affairs teams to ensure compliance with pricing regulations and guidelines set by EDA. Prior to launching a new pharmaceutical product, regulatory approval is required. The pricing department needs to work closely with regulatory affairs to ensure any pricing-related information required for regulatory submissions is accurate, complete, and in compliance with the applicable regulations. Finance and accounting. The pricing department collaborates with the finance and accounting teams to ensure accurate cost calculations, profit analysis, and financial forecasts. Overall, the pricing department is interconnected with several other departments to ensure effective coordination in determining the right pricing strategies that balance profitability, market competitiveness, and regulatory compliance. Challenges in pharmaceutical pricing. Market fluctuations. Economic instability and currency devaluation can impact drug prices. Manufacturing costs, raw materials, production, and quality control significantly influence prices. Competitor pricing. Be mindful of what your direct competitors charge. Distribution and taxes, transportation, storage, and taxes added to the overall cost. Finding your ideal price. The optimal price of your product or service is the price that will enable you to earn the most profit possible, bearing in mind your business's situation. Effect of price on profit. The more you raise your price, the greater your profitability. However, as soon as you raise your price, your profitability will drop because sales will decline. Finding your ideal price. Finding the proper price range. The ideal price. The prices that your customers consider acceptable will fall between the floor and ceiling prices. Your customers must see that your product or service falls within their range of acceptable prices. However, your costs limit the price that you can set. The graph shows the range of acceptable prices, the difference between the lowest and the highest prices. Finding the proper price range. The ideal price. The prices that your customers consider acceptable will fall between the floor and ceiling prices. Your customers must see that your product or service falls within their range of acceptable prices. However, your costs limit the price that you can set. The graph shows the range of acceptable prices, the difference between the lowest and the highest prices. Finding your ideal price. The ideal price exists between the floor price and the ceiling price. The floor price, known as the lowest price, matches the total cost. Strategies of pricing of your product or service. Below this price, you're selling at a loss and not making a profit. Break-even price 1. The ceiling price, in other words, the highest price, matches the value your customers place on your product or service. Above this price, you'll lose sales because customers will feel that your price exceeds the value of your product or service. Break-even price 2. The 5 most common pricing strategies. 1. Cost plus pricing. This strategy considers all direct and indirect costs associated with the product or service for sale. To determine the price, calculate the cost price of your product or service and add a set percentage, i.e., the profit margin. This method is called cost plus pricing. Many entrepreneurs and customers think cost plus pricing is the only way to set prices. This strategy commonly used in pricing pharmaceuticals. 2. Competitive pricing. This strategy involves constantly adjusting prices to adapt to the competitions. Part of my job is making sure I know what the competitors are doing, price-wise, and making any necessary adjustments. With this strategy, you can take one of the 3 approaches below. Cooperative pricing. If you choose this approach, your price matches your competitors. If a competitor increases their price by $1, you'll raise yours by $1. You'll do the same if they drop their price by $1. By doing this, you're maintaining the status quo. The weak point of this approach is that it leaves you vulnerable and prevents you from making optimal decisions for your business because you're too focused on what the competition is doing. Aggressive pricing. By adopting an aggressive stance, you're saying to competitors, if you raise your price, I'll keep mine the same. And if you lower your price, I will lower mine even more. You're trying to increase the distance between you and your competitors. This approach is not for everyone. A business aggressive pricing needs to rise above the competition, with healthy profit margins into which it can dip. The most likely trend for this strategy is to gradually lower prices. Still, the business may face financial problems if the sales volume drops. Dismissive pricing. If a business is a leader in its market and sells a high-end product or service, it can adopt the dismissive pricing approach. Using this approach, you're setting the price you want and don't react to what the competition is doing. In fact, by ignoring the competition, you may be able to increase the distance between you and your competitors in the market. 3. Price skimming. Businesses adopt this strategy when launching innovative products with no competition. They set a high price to start, then gradually lower it. For example, your business is launching a new kind of TV. You set a high price to take advantage of the market of tech enthusiasts called early adopters. The high price also allows your business to recover some development costs. The more saturated the early adopter market becomes, the more your sales will drop. Therefore, you lower the price to target a more price-sensitive market segment. 4. Penetration pricing. This strategy is used in a market where many similar products and services are offered and customers are price-sensitive. Penetration pricing makes sense when you're setting a lower price early on to quickly attract a significant number of customers. This way, you're setting a much lower price to help your product stand out. You can encourage customers to switch brands and create a demand for your product. Consequently, increasing sales volume may lead to economies of scale and reduce your cost per unit. A business may use the market penetration strategy instead to set a technology standard. 5. Value-based pricing. This strategy is mainly based on how a product or service meets the needs and desires of each individual. It's about the value that the customer perceives. The price better matches the customer's point of view. The pricing generates higher profits, which helps to acquire more resources and grow the business. When a price doesn't work, the answer isn't just lowering it but determining how it can better match the customer's perceived value. That can mean adapting the product or service to meet the market's needs better. In a perfect world, entrepreneurs should set their prices based on value. However, entrepreneurs selling a basic product or service, such as storage services or white t-shirts, will be better able to compete based on lower costs and price. Choose a comparable product or service and check what customers pay for it. Ensure the perceived value to the customer is higher than your costs. Comparative pricing. Local versus international. Local manufacturers tend to offer more affordable options, particularly generic drugs. International companies often introduce innovative but higher-priced branded medications. Exploration. Understanding the dynamics between local and international pricing is important for effective policymaking. SWOT analysis. For a local pharmaceutical company in Egypt, a SWOT analysis provides a comprehensive overview of a company's internal and external factors influencing its drug pricing strategy. Strengths. Understanding of local market, deep knowledge of consumer behavior, preferences, and affordability. Established distribution network, efficient reach to pharmacies and healthcare providers. Cost control, potential for lower operational costs compared to multinational companies. Brand loyalty, strong brand recognition and trust among consumers. Government relations, established relationships with regulatory bodies. Weaknesses, limited resources, smaller budget for research and development, marketing, and sales compared to multinational companies. Dependency on local suppliers, vulnerability to supply chain disruptions and price fluctuations. Limited production capacity, potential constraints in meeting increased demand. Lack of pricing power, difficulty in imposing higher prices due to competition. Opportunities, generic drug production, focus on affordable generic alternatives. Government support, leverage government initiatives to promote local pharmaceutical industry. Export potential, explore opportunities in neighboring countries. Partnerships, collaborate with other local companies or international partners. Digital marketing, utilize technology to reach a wider audience and improve efficiency. Threats, economic instability, impact on consumer purchasing power and currency fluctuations. Competition from multinational companies, price pressure and market share erosion. Counterfeit drugs, damage to brand reputation and loss of sales. Regulatory changes, impact on pricing, production, and distribution. Raw material shortages, potential production disruptions and increased costs. Role of generic drugs on enhancing local pharmaceutical industry. Impact on pricing. Generic drugs provide more affordable alternatives to branded medications, driving down overall prices. Competition. Increased competition can lead to greater price reductions and improved access. Government support. Leverage government initiatives to promote local pharmaceutical industry. Export potential. Explore opportunities in neighboring countries. Partnerships. Collaborate with other local companies or international partners. Digital marketing. Utilize technology to reach a wider audience and improve efficiency. Conclusion. Balancing affordability and innovation. Key points. Pharmaceutical pricing in Egypt requires a delicate balance between affordability, innovation, and industry sustainability. Call to action. Collaboration among stakeholders is critical for ensuring access to essential medications while supporting pharmaceutical industry growth. Q&A session. Open floor. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions and share your perspectives. Engagement. Let's discuss the complexities and potential solutions for pharmaceutical pricing in Egypt.